My name is Brandon Eads. I'm with Mountaineer Home Inspections. Been a professional home inspector for approximately 7 years. I've been around building and construction most of my life and just decided I wanted to take a step into home inspection. I do recommend that everyone have an inspection performed on their home before the finalization of the contract. It gives the client a detailed, informed report that lets them know of any defects or deficiencies with the house and recommendations for repairs. It's a very small investment for such a large purchase. First we start at the exterior. We look at the foundation walls that are visible. We check the siding, the roof. Want to make sure there's proper grading around the house. Check the downspout discharge to terminate water away from the house. This crack here, for the most part at this point, we're going to attribute it to natural settling. Once we perform the crawl space inspection, we'll check the foundation, the interior wall, the foundation wall, to make sure there's no cracking that corresponds with this. At this point, we're just going to attribute to natural settling and advise the customer to monitor this in the future. The client should monitor these drains during periods of precipitation to ensure that they are draining correctly. Typically, around the perimeter of the house, you want the soil to be built up against the house and to taper away. Typically, you want a 1-inch taper per foot for 5 to 6 feet, and that'll keep water diverted away from the foundation. Grading's not too awful bad at the back of the house, but here you can see standing water. This standing water has the potential to drain into the crawl space area. Correction of the grading would be recommended in this area. The soffit here at the back left corner of the house appears to be just a little loose. That would allow for possible pest intrusion, birds, bats, wasps, things of that nature. That should all be tight to prevent the pest intrusion. The dryer vent, you can see the dryer vent here at the exterior of the house. You can see it's clogged with lint and debris. They should be kept clean regularly. We check all the windows and the screens. Want to make sure that the steel lintels along the top of the windows, those are steel, they will rust. We want to make sure that those are kept painted to prevent rusting. Some cracking here along the front porch. We would investigate this further from the inside. The investigation does not entail that there's any problems, visible problems on the interior. Then we would recommend that the client monitor this area and contact a qualified professional if the movement would become active. The interior inspection is very extensive. We go room to room. We check electrical receptacles for proper wiring technique. We check light fixtures, light switches, window operation, door operation. We check the floor coverings, the walls. We check for moisture staining along the ceiling and wall area. The most common defects on the interior of the house are typically electrical, wire or receptacles that are wired incorrectly, the absence of ground fault protection in the kitchen and bathroom areas around the water. However, the absence of ground fault are typically easy to repair. The simple installation of a ground fault circuit interrupter will typically take care of the problem. Here we have a smoke detector that's actually missing. All smoke detectors should be in place. We recommend at least one smoke detector for each level. For enhanced safety, we recommend a smoke alarm in each room, in each bedroom. Here we found loose hardware on the attic pull down. Typically the hardware just needs to be tightened, and you'll need to do this regularly depending on the use of the pull down. Know what each breaker's function is. Would recommend that all of the panel cover screws be installed. Got one missing here. The garage door photo eyes are roughly 18 to 20 inches off the floor. These eyes are set in place. They'll actually cause the door to reverse if something walks in front of these eyes that obstructs the laser. These are typically set 6 inches from the floor. We suggest that you check the manufacturer's installation guide and adjust as needed. In the attic or crawl space, we look for structure and foundation issues. The crawl space especially, we check for water, moisture intrusion. We want to make sure that the floor joists are properly spanned. Placement of vapor barriers and ventilation, proper ventilation in the crawl space. Attics and crawl spaces are typically where the inspections performed within the attic or the crawl space as long as there's access. Closet shelving sometimes restricts the scuttle hole for the attic. Small crawl space areas, areas of 3 feet or less are typically hard to enter. Duct work in the crawl space, things of that nature. The bathroom areas, run the water. Here we have the ground fault protection. This tester here will make sure that it's wired right. Let's not use this one as an example. Well, we can use it. This one here fails to trip when I use my tester. According to the one single orange light, it shows that there's a missing equipment ground. You can further test the GFI here. Once you hear it pop, that means it is ground fault protected. It resets. These should be tested monthly. The waters typically run for 10 to 15 minutes. We'll check beneath the sink to make sure there's no leaks. We'll check for proper drainage. The toilets. First off, you want to make sure the toilet's secure to the floor. Any shifting or movement can cause a leak. We'll operate the commode. Make sure that the flush is proper. Then we'll check the supply lines. We'll run our hands along the supply lines behind the toilet to make sure there's no leaking. Hand railings along the interior stairways, we want to make sure that the hand railings are tight. The spindle spacing between the handrails should not be allowed to pass a 4-inch ball between these railings. It has the potential, anything larger than that has the potential for small children to possibly fall through. Room by room, we typically check. We want to check along all the walls and ceilings. We're looking for signs of cracking or moisture intrusion. The electrical receptacles, all readily accessible receptacles are tested to ensure that they are properly grounded, properly wired. All the windows that are accessible are operated. We want to make sure the windows properly raise. Make sure that they stay up once they're raised. Want to make sure that there's no cracking or peeling paint around the windows. Cluttered homes would be a pet peeve of mine. Areas that it really limits the inspection. Cluttered garages, attics, things of that nature. We just can't travel. We're only there to inspect the readily accessible components of the home. Now this is the entrance to the crawl space area. As you can see, there's storage items and personal belongings. Typically we'll move smaller items to gain access, but this is one problem that the home inspector runs into during inspection is blocked access. The average home inspection will run between 3 and 4 hours. We typically like the buyer to be there for at least the last portion of the inspection to maybe sum up the report. The report that I perform is on an iPad. You're looking at 50 to 70 pages of information, including detailed pictures. I take a lot of pictures in my report, especially if my buyer's not there or not going to be present. I take pictures. For one, to cover myself. For two, to give them information on the house. It's easy to say you've got electrical receptacles that are wired incorrectly, but if you take a picture of it with the tester actually in the receptacle, then they know where that receptacle's at. They're not chasing around the house. If a seller was to have the inspection done and they're on site with you during the inspection, if the receptacle's wired incorrectly, most people either have the knowledge or know someone that can correctly wire the receptacle, so you take what can be a potential safety hazard and turn it into an easy repair. I work for the buyers, and that is my client. Out of respect for the client, I would prefer that it's just a one-on-one interaction with my client so the full detailed report is completely understood. A home inspector that is a licensed contractor should not give recommendations or evaluations for the cost of repairs. As a home inspector, you're there for the home inspection only. We recommend that any repairs need to be made for the house you should contact a qualified contractor for the repairs or the estimates. There is no perfect house. The sellers are not always going to fix everything that's detailed in our report. Purchasing a home is the most, probably the biggest decision, the most expensive issue that anybody will ever face in their life. The home inspection will give you any details as far as deficiencies or defects in the house itself. It's really such a small investment when you're considering making the largest investment of your life. We recommend everyone have one.